What are biomes? A biome is a large, distinctive complex of plant communities created and maintained by climate. How many biomes are there? A study published in 1999 concluded that there are 150 different ecoregions in North America alone. There are 8 biomes consistent of the following: 1. Tundra, 2. Taiga, 3. Temperate deciduous forest, 4. Scrub forest, called a chaparral in California, 5. Grassland, 6. Desert, 7. Tropical rainforest, and 8. Temperate rainforest. The figure shows the distribution of these 8 biomes around the world. A number of climatic factors interact in the creation and maintenance of a biome. Where precipitation is moderately abundant, 40 inches about 1 meter or more per year, and distribution of fair evenly throughout the year, the major determinant is temperature. It is not simply a matter of average temperature, but includes such limiting factors as whether it freezes, length of the growing season, and if there is ample rainfall. We find 4 characteristic biomes as we proceed from the tropics, which are high temperatures, to the extreme latitudes, which are low temperatures. In order, they are 1. Tropical rainforest or jungle, 2. Temperate deciduous forest, 3. Taiga, and 4. Tundra. Tropical rainforest. In the Western Hemisphere, the tropical rainforest reaches its fullest development in the jungles of Central and South America. The trees are very tall and of a great variety of species. One rarely finds 2 trees of the same species growing close to one another. The vegetation is so dense that little light reaches the forest floor. Most of the plants are evergreen, not deciduous, and the branches of the trees are festooned with vines and epiphytes. See it in the photo taken by the Liquilio National Forest of Puerto Rico. Epiphytes are plants that live perched on sturdier plants. They do not take nourishment from their host as parasitic plants do. Because their roots do not reach the ground, they depend on air to bring them moisture and inorganic nutrients. Many orchids and bromeliads, which are members of the pineapple family like Spanish moss, are epiphytes. The lushness of tropical rainforests suggests a high net productivity, but this is illusory. Many of the frequent attempts to use the tropical rainforest for conventional crops have been disappointing. There are 2 problems. 1. The high rainfall leaches soil materials below the reach of plant roots. 2. The warmth and moisture cause rapid decay, and so little humus is added to the soil. The tropical rainforest exceeds all other biomes in the diversity of its animals, as well as its plants. Most of the animals, mammals, and reptiles, as well as birds and insects, live in the trees. The closest thing to a tropical rainforest in the continental United States are the little wooded islands found scattered through the Everglades in the southern tip of Florida. Their existence depends on the fact that it never freezes, and they often escape the fires that periodically sweep the Everglades. Temperate deciduous forest. This biome occupies the eastern half of the United States and a large portion of Europe. It is characterized by hardwood trees like beech, maple, oak, and hickory, which are deciduous. That is, they shed their leaves in the autumn. The number of different species is far more limited than in the jungle. Deer, raccoon, and salamanders are characteristic inhabitants. During growing season, this biome can be quite productive in both natural and agricultural ecosystems. Taiga. The taiga is named after the biome in Russia. It is a land dominated by conifers, especially spruces and firs. It is dotted with lakes, bogs, and marshes. It is populated by an even more limited variety of plants and animals than is the temperate deciduous forest. In North America, the moose is such a typical member that it has led to the name spruce moose biome. Before the long snowy winter sets in, many of the mammals hibernate, and many of the birds migrate south. Although the long days of summer permit plants to grow luxuriantly, net productivity is low. At extreme latitudes, the trees of the taiga become stunted by the harshness of subarctic climate. Finally, they disappear, leaving a land of bogs and lakes. The climate is so cold in the winter that even the long days of summer are unable to thaw the permafrost beneath the surface layers of the soil. sphagnum moss, a wide variety of lichens, and some grasses and fast-growing annuals dominate the landscape during the short growing season. Caribou feed on this growth, as do a vast number of insects. Swarms of migrating birds, especially waterfowl, invade the tundra in the summer to raise their young, feeding them on a large variety of aquatic invertebrates and vertebrates. As the brief Arctic summer draws to a close, the birds fly south, all but a few of the permanent residents. In one way or another, they prepare themselves to spend the winter in a dormant state. Biomes established by altitude. Temperature is the major influence on the biomes discussed above because temperatures decline with altitude as well as latitude. Similar biomes exist on mountains even when they are at low altitudes. As a rule of thumb, a climb of 1,000 feet, which is about 300 meters, is equivalent in changed flora and fauna to a trip northward of some 600 miles, which would be 966 kilometers. Field studies in various parts of the northern hemisphere have shown that in recent decades, many species of animals and plants have shifted their range farther north, averaging about 16.9 kilometers per decade, and shifted their ranges higher in the mountains, averaging about 11 meters per decade. These observations add to the growing body of evidence that global warming is affecting a broad assortment of living things. Biomes established by rainfall. The other major biomes are controlled not only by temperature, but about the amount of rainfall and seasonal distribution. The prevailing winds in the western half of North America blow from the Pacific laden with moisture. Each time this air rises up from the western slopes of successively the coast ranges, the Sierra and the Cascades, and finally the Rockies. It expands and cools. Its moisture condenses to rain or snow, which drenches the mountain slopes beneath. When the air reaches the eastern slopes, it is relatively dry and much less precipitation falls. How much falls and when determine whether a biome will be a temperate rainforest, grassland, desert, or chaparral. Temperate rainforest. The temperate rainforest combines a high annual rainfall with a temperate climate. The Olympic Peninsula in North America is a good example. An annual rainfall of as much as 150 inches, which is 381 centimeters, produces a lush forest of conifers. Grasslands. Grasslands are also known as prairie or plains. The annual precipitation in grasslands averages 20 inches, which is around 51 centimeters per year. A large proportion of this falls as rain early in the growing season. This promotes a vigorous growth of perennial grasses and herbs, but, except along river valleys, is barely adequate for the growth of forest. This photo shows grasslands in the Badlands National Monument in South Dakota. Fire is probably the factor that tips the balance from forest to grasslands. Fires set by lightning and humans regularly swept the plains in earlier times. Thanks to their underground stems and buds, perennial grasses and herbs were not harmed by the fires that destroyed most of the shrubs and trees. The abundance of grass for food, coupled with the lack of shelter from predators, produces similar animal populations in grasslands throughout the world. The dominant vertebrates are swiftly moving herbivores ungulates. In North America, bison and antelope were conspicuous members of the grassland fauna before the coming of white settlers. Now, the level grasslands supply corn, wheat, and other grains, and the hillier areas support domestic ungulates like cattle and sheep. When cultivated carefully, the grassland biome is capable of high net productivity. The major reason rainfall in this biome never leaches soil materials below the reach of roots of crop plants. Annual rainfall in the desert is less than 10 inches, or 25 centimeters, and in some years may be zero. Because of the extreme dryness of the desert, its colonization is limited to plants such as cacti, sagebrush, and mesquite that have a high number of adaptations that conserve water over long periods. Fast-growing annuals whose seeds can germinate, develop to maturity, flower, and produce new crop seeds, all within a few weeks following the rare soaking rain. The photo shows a desert in the Enza Borrego Park in South California. Many of the animals in the desert, which are mammals, lizards, and snakes, insects, and even some birds, are adapted for burrowing to escape the scorching heat of the desert sun. Many of them limit their forays for food to the night. The net productivity of the desert is low. High productivity can sometimes be achieved with irrigation, but these gains are often only temporary. The high rates of evaporation cause minerals to accumulate near the surface, and soon their concentration may reach levels toxic to plants. Chaparral. The annual rainfall in chaparral biome may reach 20 to 30 inches, which would be 64 to 76 centimeters. But in contrast to grasslands, almost all of this falls in the winter. Summers are very dry, and all plants, trees, shrubs, and grasses are more or less dormant then. The chaparral is found in California. This certain photo shows the chaparral-clad foothills in Sierra Nevada in California. Similar biomes with other names such as scrub forests are found around much of the Mediterranean Sea and along the southern coast of Australia. The trees in the chaparral are mostly oaks, both deciduous and evergreen. Scrubs, oaks, shrubs like manzanita, and the Californian lilac, which is not a relative of the eastern lilac, form dense evergreen thickets. All of these plants are adapted to drought, such as mechanisms as waxy, waterproof coating on their leaves. The chaparral has many plants brought to it from similar biomes elsewhere. Vineyards, olives, and figs flourish just as they do in native Mediterranean biomes. So too do eucalyptus trees transplanted from the equivalent biome in Australia. This concludes the Biome Project.